everybody, hope you're all doing well. So it's Friday, I'm wearing black, you know what that means, it's time for some Hamlet. As always, the monologue is in the description below, so take a moment to pause me, read it, and then come on back. So, we are looking at another one of the speeches that Hamlet makes in Hamlet, because as we are all well aware by this point, Hamlet doesn't shut up. The particular speech we're looking at today is called Speak the Speech, and it's actually technically a monologue in 3 parts. Hamlet is talking to the players who are about to put on the play within a play that we have talked about multiple times throughout our Hamlet videos, and he's giving them advice on how to perform. And he speaks a chunk of it, then the players have a line, then he speaks another chunk, and then the players have a line, and then he finishes it off. We're only going to focus on the first third of that monologue, and we're going to take a look at that now. Now, 2 things. I love this monologue for 2 very distinct reasons. First of all, it is the first ever Shakespearean monologue I ever learned. This, in fact, was the monologue that my first theater teacher, when I was a freshman in high school, assigned to the entire class that we had to learn, memorize, and figure out how to perform. So it's one that's got a special place in my heart. I've used it to help teach Shakespeare. And the second reason I love it is because the advice Hamlet gives to the players is really actually quite good. And if you look at it, it's a really interesting look because it tells you a little bit about how Shakespeare thought things should be played. Because this is Shakespeare writing this advice, and Shakespeare, in addition to being a playwright, was also an actor and director, so this was his thoughts on it. And that's actually kind of cool when you stop and think about it. We have a record of basically what Shakespeare would have thought about most performances back in, the 1600s. Anyway, so the things to think about with this speech is Hamlet is in a very interesting position here, because this is one of the few times that he is really talking to somebody that he doesn't have to be nice to. And I'll explain that. So Hamlet is a prince. So technically everybody except for Claudius and his mom are lower ranking than him. So he doesn't really have to be nice to anybody. But at the same time, the other people he deals with are either friends of his or nobles who, while he doesn't necessarily have to be nice, it is good that he is kind to them because, if enough nobles don't like him, they could overthrow him when he eventually becomes king, type of thing. So he generally has to be respectful or nice to these other people because they have status or they are close to him. The actors are people that mean nothing to him at the end of the day. They are a means to an end for him. They are his way of checking to see if Claudius really did murder his father, and that's all they are to him. They are a tool. And yet, Hamlet does treat them with a bit of respect. He does, tell them how to do their job, which is a whole other conversation, but he's generally not rude to them. He's just like, no, you need to do it this way, because for him, it's super important that they do it the exact way he's told them, because that's how he's going to figure out if the ghost was telling the truth. But again, the advice he gives them is actually really, really solid. Basically it's don't overact. Don't wave your hands around like a crazy person. Be thoughtful in how you perform. And it's really, really quite awesome. Anyway, other things that we need to consider with this monologue. We need to consider also some of the references that it makes. Things that we may not know, whether it's because it's a word we're unfamiliar with or it's a reference that somebody else would have gotten. There are 3 particular references I want to talk about. Hamlet talks about the groundlings during this, and a groundling was a term in Elizabethan theater for the people who stood in front of the stage. Now, in Elizabethan theater, the best seats in the house were not directly in front of the stage. In fact, those were the cheap seats. If you were a peasant and you wanted to see the theater, you'd pay like a penny and you'd go in and you'd be standing in front of the stage the entire time. Those people were the groundlings. They tended to talk and eat and generally not pay attention for some of the things. So you really had to make sure you were keeping their attention, otherwise they might throw rotten fruit at you. The other 2 references, one is to is a term called Termagant, which we don't ever use anymore, but it essentially meant a woman who was very harsh and shrill. He also references Herod, which is a biblical reference to King Herod of Israel, who decided that he was going to kill a bunch of babies, and basically Shakespeare says that overacting is worse than what Herod did to the babies, and, well, I don't agree with that. I think that's a bit of hyperbole, Shakespeare. Just saying. But anyway, those are the three big references he makes. So like yesterday when I talked about Antony, you have to look up the words that you may not know. Those are three things that you want to look up. And honestly, a quick Google search will tell you pretty much all of that. Anyway. So, from a character's perspective, we're looking at a thing where Hamlet is in complete control. Whatever he says, they will have to do because he is a prince, he is paying their bills, and frankly, if they piss him off, he can throw them in jail, or worse. So, he can speak with a complete confidence that no matter what he says, they're going to do it, even if he gave them the worst advice ever. But again, it's good advice. So, we're going to take a look at the first third of this. Let's see Hamlet. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. For if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hand, thus, but use all gently. For in the very torrent, tempest, and as I may say, whirlwind of your passion, you must acquire and beget temperance that may give it smoothness. Oh, it offends me to the soul to hear a robustious, periwig-pated fellow tear a passion to tatters, to very rags, to split the ears of the groundlings, who, for the most part, are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. I would have such a fellow whipped for overdoing Termagant. It out-herods Herod. Pray you, avoid it. And that is Hamlet's advice to the players. So, real quick thing before we go into next week. Monday is a holiday. I will not be on, and I will be trying something very different next week. I'm going to be mixing things up. Mondays and Fridays are still going to be monologues, with Friday still focusing on Hamlet, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are going to change. On Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to be focusing on technical theater, things that are not performance. And on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing what I call a working Wednesday, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you things that you can use to work on your own performance. It's going to be something new I'm going to try, and I'm going to try and run that out through the rest of the school year. Hope you all have a lovely weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday. Bye!